My GP rang me with my blood test results and told me everything looked fine. I was 1 point away from a diabetes diagnosis. That was December 2023. I'd heard some versions of that phone call for 8 years. Results back, nothing to worry about, keep taking the medication, same call, different numbers. And every year, those numbers were a little bit worse. I'm Neil, I've got 13 years of NHS blood test printouts in a folder and a GP letter that says every marker is now in optimal range. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you the pattern in my data that I didn't spot for 8 years. And if your blood sugar has been creeping in one direction for a while, this mechanism is worth understanding, whatever your situation looks like right now. First, the number that changed everything. The December 2023 blood test that told me I was running out of time. Then the pattern across 8 years that my GP and I both missed, the slow slide that happens quietly while everything's technically fine, and then what happened in the 13 months after I stopped accepting fine as an answer. So December 2023 blood test comes back, HbA1c 47, reference range upper limit is 41, diabetes diagnosis starts at 48, was 1 point off pre-diabetic upper limit, 1 point from a diabetes diagnosis. And my GP rang and said everything was fine. Now, to be fair to him, he's right. Technically, 47 is pre-diabetic, not diabetic. Not the call where he has to tell me something seriously wrong. Manageable, watch it and wait, which is exactly what we've been doing for 8 years. Because here's the thing, I didn't see at the time. I had to go back through the records later to spot it. In 2015, my HbA1c was 38, normal. In 2016, 40, borderline. 2020, 43. Pre-diabetic, 2022, 47. Still pre-diabetic, but higher. And December 2023, 47. So that's 38, 40, 43, 47, 47. One direction for nearly a decade. Slow, quiet, and technically within the ranges that don't trigger a serious conversation, but in one direction. And I didn't see it as a pattern. I saw each result as a single number. Fine, slightly high, watch it, fine, a bit elevated, keep an eye on it. The pattern only became visible when I laid them out all together. And by the time I did that, I was almost out of runway. Let me give you the actual numbers because this is where the detective work gets interesting. September 2015, HbA1c 38, normal range. I was on statins by this point, on gout medications, on asthma inhalers, but blood sugar was fine. October 2016, 40, borderline, noted, nothing changed. July 2020, 43, pre-diabetic territory. First time that label appeared on my results, the GP communicated it, was told about lifestyle changes, I was also told to keep taking the medication. October 2022, 47, still pre-diabetic, but now just 1 point below the threshold where a diabetes diagnosis becomes possible. My GP at the time noted it, sent me information about the NHS Diabetes Prevention Programme. December 2023, the same, 47. The GP says fine, that's 8 years, 5 results, and a slow creep from 38, which wasn't great, to 47. On paper, controlled. In reality, I was sitting at the top of pre-diabetic range with nowhere further to go before it became something else. And the whole time I was doing what I'd been told, taking the medication, not doing anything dramatically wrong, just gradually getting worse. Here's what I was thinking at the time, and I want to be honest about this because it matters. I wasn't scared. Wasn't particularly focused on the blood sugar numbers. I had cholesterol medication, gout medication, asthma inhalers. Blood sugar was just another thing that was slightly off. I assumed the medication was managing it. I assumed if it got properly serious, someone would tell me. That assumption that the pills were sorting it, or at least controlling it, meant I wasn't looking at the trajectory. I was looking at each result in isolation. Each one was manageable. The pattern wasn't. Then Boxing Day 2023, no single trigger, not the December blood test specifically, though I don't think that helped. It was more of accumulation. I was fed up with where I'd got to, fed up with how I felt, fed up with the version of myself I'd ended up with. 18 stone, multiple medications, tired most of the time, out of breath from going out upstairs. Something had to change. So I stopped eating. I did some reading. And I started again 10 days later with a completely different approach. Time restricted eating, eating within a defined window and fasting outside of it, and whole food, real food, nothing processed. I'd been reading Chris Van Tilken's Processed People. That landed hard. The idea that ultra-processed food wasn't just unhealthy, but was specifically engineered to work against you. That reframed everything for me. And then I kept reading. Books, blogs, YouTube, went deeper, much deeper. March 2024, 3 months in, liver function, normal. Kidney function, better than it had been in years. My eGFR was over 90. That was the first signs that things were moving. January 2025, 13 months after Boxing Day, my HbA1c was 40, back to just within normal range, down from 47 to 40 in 13 months. April 2025, 3 months later, my HbA1c was 37, well within normal. The numbers that had been creeping upwards for 8 years had reversed and kept going. November 2025, still 37. To put that in context, the deterioration from 38 to 47 took roughly 8 years. The reversal from 47 to 37 took 13 months. The downward move happened 16 times faster than the upward one, without medication specifically targeting blood sugar, without a GP supervised anything, without a plan, at least not initially. I want to be careful here about what I'm claiming and what I'm not. I didn't ring my GP before I changed my diet. But I want to be straight with you. I didn't have a carefully planned medical intervention. I had a Boxing Day moment, some reading and a decision to eat differently. The blood test came later and showed what had happened. 13 years of NHS blood tests, the actual numbers, the GP conversations, what changed and what didn't. If you want to follow someone who documents this properly rather than just talks about it, that's what this channel is. Subscribe if that's going to be useful to you. So what's the mechanism? Why did changing when I ate and what I ate move a number that medication hadn't shifted in 8 years? The short version, HbA1c, measures your average blood sugar over roughly 3 months. It's not a snapshot, it's a trend, which is why it moves slowly in both directions. The medication I was on, statins for cholesterol, wasn't targeting blood sugar directly. So the blood sugar was drifting upwards on its own, slowly, and nothing in my treatment was specifically addressing it. When I shifted to time-restricted eating, I was giving my body extended periods with no food coming in at all, no glucose spikes, no insulin responses to manage. The system got regular breaks. And when I switched to whole food, real food, nothing ultra-processed, the quality of what I was eating stopped working against the system. Professor Tim Spector, Professor of Epidemiology at King College London, puts it plainly. Studies in humans and mice show that people consuming identical total calories within an 8 to 10 hour window gain less weight than those eating the same calories spread across the whole day. When you eat matters as much as what you eat. That's the timing piece. The food quality piece is separate but connected. Ultra-processed food is specifically engineered to produce rapid glucose responses. Switch to whole food and you're removing the thing that was driving the spikes in the first place. Now, the GP conversation I didn't have. I genuinely didn't think to have it. I wasn't scared, wasn't worried about the medication interactions, just felt better and kept going. Looking back, probably should have flagged it. If you're on glucose lowering medication, specifically metformin, insulin, anything targeting blood sugar directly, please have that conversation before changing your fasting pattern or diet significantly. That's not a throwaway disclaimer, that's a real interaction risk. I wasn't on blood sugar medication, which is probably why nothing went wrong. But do check. April 2025, routine blood test. My GP looked at the results, long pause, and are you back on statins? No. This is better than when you were on medication. That moment, 8 years of gradual decline, 13 months of movement in the other direction, and a GP who, to his credit, noticed. I'd have looked at the trend earlier, not the individual numbers, the direction. 38 to 40 to 43 to 47. That's a pattern with a destination. I was looking at each result in isolation and hearing, fine, and believing it. I'd have printed them all out, put them on a table, and asked, where does this line go if I do nothing? The answer for me was towards a diabetes diagnosis, probably within the next year or two. I just couldn't see it until I looked at all of them together. If you've got blood test results and your HbA1c has been moving, even slowly, even staying technically in normal or pre-diabetic range, that direction matters more than the individual number. A 38 moving to 40, moving to 43 isn't dramatic at any single point. As a trend, it's telling you something. If you're on medication and your blood sugar is still drifting upwards, that's worth a conversation with your GP. Not, is this fine, but where does this go if the current approach continues? This is the part I find most interesting, and it's the part I would have found useful at 38 or 40 when nothing was technically wrong. Blood sugar dysregulation doesn't start at 48, it starts years earlier as a mechanism operating quietly in the background. Energy that's off for no obvious reason. Weight that doesn't respond the way it used to. Sleep that isn't quite doing the job. Those aren't separate things. They can all be the same process, showing up in different ways before any numbers cross a clinical threshold. The thing is, this pattern in my blood test isn't unique to my situation. Insulin responding this way to the wrong food at the wrong time across years is a mechanism, not a diagnosis, and it tends to start long before anyone puts a label on it. If your energy has been off, not ill, not stressed, just not right, and your blood tests are technically fine but trending in one direction, that's worth being curious about. Not alarmed, curious, because the pattern shows up in the data before the clinical conversations will ever happen. And that's a useful thing to know. If you want to start tracking your own markers, HbA1c, cholesterol, the basics, I've got a free download in the description. The 7-day fasting blueprint walks you through where to start with, time-restricted eating, what to track, and how to read your own blood test in plain English. The link's below. One important thing before you go. Everything in this video is educational. It's not medical advice. Before you change your fasting pattern, your diet, or anything to do with your medication, please speak to your GP. All the biomarker changes I've shown you were documented by my NHS GP. Some of them happened, a lot of them happened without a prior conversation. And I've told you that honestly. Don't repeat that part. If you're on medication that directly affects blood sugar, have the conversation first. Next Monday, a different pattern from the data, same detective process. I'll see you then.